Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Since Valentine's Day is coming up, I thought I might have a little bit of fun with that as part of this Ask Judy segment. So, in touching on couples on the Waltons, of course, we had all of the relationships that did exist. But I thought, well, who might some of the actors or some of you feel might be some of the best matches, or what matches would you have liked to have seen? So I think when we start off with Zeb and Esther, they're pretty darn perfect together. They were a good foil for each other, and we got to see a lot of the dynamics of that relationship. But we knew that they really loved each other and were very committed to each other, and no matter what went on, they got back together. Of course, John and Olivia, I think, were the hallmark of relationships on the show. That was, I think, the mother and father that most of us would have liked to have had if we didn't already in real life. And I think the kind of a marriage that many of us aspire to. And hopefully some of us have that kind of a marriage. They were just so wonderful together. I've talked about it so much. So I can't imagine any other couple that would have been more perfect. I couldn't think of a better partner for John or for Olivia. John Boy, of course, ultimately married Janet in one of the final reunion movies. But over the years, John Boy had a lot of romances. Many of you have felt that his perfect partner would have been Jenny, and they wished she came back, Jenny Pendleton. Many of you were like me, and my favorite relationship for John Boy would have been Daisy. I just thought from the marathon on until they re-met in New York, I just really loved their dynamic together. So that would have been my choice for John Boy's life partner. Jason, we didn't see him have a lot of relationships, but I thought Tony ended up being a pretty darn good match for him. She brought out some more fire in him, and he, met his match with her. Mary Ellen, I've heard mixed things from all of you about David versus Kurt, and some of you are Camp David, and some of you are Camp Kurt. And then there was Jonesy. For me, I was, if I had to pick one, my favorite marriage was probably the one with Jonesy. I just thought, perhaps because Mary Ellen had matured a bit by then, but I just thought that they were very well matched, and it was lighthearted. They weren't as combative, and I just felt that that would have been a marriage and a family that I would have liked to have seen more of had there been a spinoff or had the series continued. Ben, I thought Ben and Cindy were pretty perfect, and I loved how it started and the conflicts that they had, and they went through a lot, but I thought that they were also very well suited, and I have never heard Eric mention a relationship that he thought he would have preferred Ben to have. Aaron ended up with Paul Northridge, but Mary has been quite open about saying that she wished that Aaron had ended up with Ashley Longworth Jr. And they did seem to be certainly the model perfect. I mean, what a beautiful couple they made. She's so beautiful and he's so handsome. And I think that would have been lovely to see had Ashley come back ultimately. And especially with Miss Mamie having lost Ashley Sr., that somebody had a happy ending with one of the Ashley Longworth men would have been nice. By the end of the show and the reunion specials, Jim Bob was still not married, but David has said that he had wished that they had pursued the relationship with Patsy Bremer, particularly when she was played by Eileen McDonough, because David himself admits to having had definitely a crush on Eileen. So we would wish for that relationship. And then Elizabeth, I thought Elizabeth and Drew were adorable together. And I think we all would have liked to have seen that actual wedding and that family. So again, if we project into the future, those were some of the relationships and families that would have been really sweet to see. On another side, I just had some random thoughts about what fun if the Waltons had been a sitcom and what some of those relationships might have been. I could see Zeb running off with Maude Gormley, for instance, or how about Aaron marrying J.D. Pickett? Or maybe Mary Ellen ending up with Yancey Tucker. I just think that some of these random sort of relationships with some of these real characters that we had on the show could have been a lot of fun. And maybe, Miss Emily or Miss Mamie might have had, an interesting bow. And who knows? So maybe you can share some of your thoughts about what might have been fun in terms of relationships had this been a whole different type of show. I'd enjoy your thoughts on that. So as far as Ask Judy goes with questions or comments, Rob K. left a comment where he said, I absolutely love the Waltons Together Again CD and play it every Christmas. I especially like Follow That Star, and that's what Christmas means to me. By the way, the CD is available on Amazon and Discogs. So Discogs, I'm not familiar with Discogs, but there you go, or Amazon. So potential places, I think they're probably used copies. So for those of you who might be looking for that, if you can find a copy, I think it is well worth having. Speaking of Christmas, even though it's not, we're talking holidays, Valentine's, Christmas, Anyway, someone had sent me this insert from December 1971 edition of TV Guide. And this was going to be the evening that The Homecoming aired at 7:30 on CBS. And there's this lovely little close-up. They would do these different sort of promotional ads for shows they wanted to really draw attention to and make sure that the audience knew something about the show and hopefully tuned in. So in this case, they have this lovely picture of Patricia Neal as Olivia holding the Christmas cactus. And it says, a potential Christmas classic. Special. Patricia Neal heads an outstanding cast in this low-key drama of a Virginia family holding its own against the Depression. It is Christmas Eve, 1933. Olivia Walton and her 7 children are preparing for the holiday. The story is one of simple family doings and slowly mounting fear. The roads are icy, and Olivia's husband is long overdue. Director Fielder Cook, The Price, filmed the winter scenery at Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Earl Hamner Jr. adapted The Homecoming, his autobiographical novel. And then it goes on to, list the cast. And so it was just sweet to come across this and have somebody send it to me. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. I also had this comment and question from Drycracker about The Homecoming. He says, William Wyndham has quite a history. Like you mentioned, odds were not that great for paratroopers. He persevered. Through his acting, he brought us memorable characters such as the one and only Charlie Sneed from The Homecoming. Charlie was a likable and unforgettable character. Not only did he supply a turkey for the family, but also supplied John Boy with his vehicle to search for John Sr. This is a person who I'll gladly call a friend. Charlie was the Robin Hood at the time when one was needed. Theft is never okay, but at times there are allowances. I hope Mr. Wyndham felt that his mark on the world made a difference. Thanks for mentioning his great-grandfather. He also made a difference in his own way. And then he went on to say, Judy, just wanted to mention that I saw you yesterday in Harvey Brownstone interviews. I thought it was a good interview. It reminded me that you have done so much more than the Waltons. During the discussion, your movie, Nowhere to Hide, inclusion criteria came up. You mentioned you wrote it and it can be viewed on Tubi. So naturally, I had to check it out. Thank you. Personally, I thought it was a good film. It has a nice pace, was comical, suspenseful, and somewhat of a thriller. It was different, and you were really good in it. I saw Mary Ellen in a whole new light, and it was refreshing to see you all together in a different role, a different environment. Judy, I know this is a Waltons platform, but I do have some questions about the movie. Hope you don't mind. So for those of you who want to stay with me for these questions about my movie, Nowhere to Hide, please do. So his questions are, you wrote and you were one of the producers. Is there a reason why you didn't direct? I didn't direct because I wanted an outside eye, because I was doing the lead role. I just felt that would be one too many things, and I wanted some input to make sure that what I was doing was as strong as it could be. And if I'm going to also direct something I do, then I'm particular about what those pieces are and need to know that I feel 100% confident in everything I'm doing as an actor, and perhaps not quite so demanding a role. So that was the reason on that. Also, were you satisfied with the way it turned out? There was a lot of it that I was really happy with. There were some things, because the budget was so tight, the ending never quite worked right, and that was really disappointing. We had some issues on the day we were shooting that, and they simply ran out of time. And so we didn't get all the pieces to make the ending make sense. So for those of you who saw it and went, I don't understand the ending, well, I apologize, and happy to tell you what it really should have meant. Anyway, how long did it take to shoot the film? We shot it in just like a couple of weeks, so super fast. I know you mentioned that you were working with a minuscule budget. Yes, it's kind of like giving someone a written recipe, and when you look at their finished product, you might say, what happened? In the future, I plan to seek out some of your other work. If I have questions about some of your other work, could I post them here? Yes, absolutely. So yes, there's always issues when you're working with a teeny tiny budget. And I thought that the crew was amazing. They worked their tails off, and they were so supportive. And I felt that a lot of that really worked. We kept our sets simple. We didn't have a lot of different locations. I thought maybe some of the editing could have been a little tighter now as I watch it back. At the time, I didn't. But then as I've watched it since, I feel like maybe it could have been tightened up and maybe moved a little bit more in some places. But predominantly the ending was the thing that I thought didn't quite work, because it was supposed to basically be that the cycle of what happened with my character was starting again, and that my character, along with one of the detectives who helped save me, that the two of us were investigating to try and find out who was behind it and what was going on with it. So those were the two things that the ending was supposed to be about, through just a series of vignettes, but we weren't able to get enough of the little vignettes to make that all clear. So that's the story on that. So for those of you who see it, if you now want to see, that's kind of like the behind the scenes of Nowhere to Hide, available on Tubi. And so now you have a little bit of the behind the scenes. If you want more, I can do a whole segment about it sometime. Anyway, thank you so much. Thanks so much for joining me for this segment of behind the scenes of the Waltons. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.